Here we are, here we are. What is everybody doing? Party time, I guess. Look, we got a lot to cover. Some really interesting stuff. I wanted to talk about, Texas, talking about seceding from the United States. Can they do it? And what happens if they do? You're going to find out a lot of really interesting things here. If we go back a little bit since Texas became a state, 86 times this subject has come up, or 82 times throughout history of Texas being part of the United States has come up. Do they want to get out? Can they get out if they wanted to? Well, we're about to find out. I've done a whole bunch of research. Some really interesting stuff. I mean, we can go on for a million different topics. What does the Constitution say? What does the law say? Can they do it? This starts with Carl Biederman. Representative down there in Texas. He says the federal government is out of control and doesn't represent the values of Texans. That's why I'm committing to file legislation that will allow a referendum to give Texas a vote for the state of Texas to reassert its status as an independent nation. Okay, there's a lot of good things and a lot of bad things about that. What exactly does secession mean? Seceding from the United States, what is that? I did some research. Thank God for Wikipedia, one of my go-to sources. So they're talking about, in the context of the United States, secession primarily means or refers to voluntary withdrawal of one or more states from the Union that constitutes the United States as a country. We refer to leaving a state or a territory to form a separate territory or a new state, if you will. Which brings us to another question, which we'll cover a little bit later. What about new states? Can we sever a county? Can we sever a state, and can we quarter it? What can we do with a city? Can we sever it, or can we turn it into another county or another state, or what have you? It's really interesting how this all goes, and it's very in-depth and very complicated. I apologize. I'm looking at digital notes. I'm trying this whole digital note thing rather than having papers in my hands, because a lot of times I don't know what to do with my hands, so maybe I ought to stick to that. But there's proponents and opponents on both sides. Some are for it, and some not so much. Those that want to justify secession, they've been talking about it. There's a whole bunch of argument that opposes it. What happens to financially? Well, we're going to find it out. Not today, but we're all going to find it out. What can happen when a state is admitted into the United States, such as Texas, and this has been part of the problem. When a state enters, when a territory enters into an agreement with the United States to become a part of the Union, a part of the United States, there's a whole bunch. They just don't say, here's my application, fine, you're hired, and you're now, raise the American flag. It doesn't work that way. There's a whole lot of stuff. So, there's been argument, and people ask about, can in the case of Texas, it's rumored that when they signed on to become a part of the United States, that there was a clause in there that said that they had the right to secede, and that I'm still not really clear on. I have not gotten a yes or a no on that, but it leans more towards the no section. So, when a state is admitted into the Union, it enters into an agreement or a guarantee with the government. So what part of the obligation of the United States is a Republican government. So I'm going to read directly from what my notes say here, and the United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a Republican form of government. People are not going to like that, but you can look all this up, and I'll leave a link at the end of the video. Sometimes this clause is referred to as the guarantee clause. It's long been a forefront of the debate about the rights of citizens vis-a-vis the government. The guarantee clause mandates that all U.S. states must be grounded in Republican principles, such as the consent of the government, by ensuring that all states must have the same basic Republican philosophy. The guarantee clause is one of the several portions of the Constitution which mandates symmetric federalism between the states. Here's where things get a little bit confusing. Okay, we got some more learning to do. So what constitutes a Republican philosophy? What constitutes a Republican principle? So that's part of the problem, and that's where you get a lot of debate, because the Constitution does not explain what exactly constitutes a Republican form of government. There are, however, several places within it where the principles behind the concept of Republican government are articulated. So, but you say, okay, yeah, but the Republican platform is different. Back in 1860, 1850, yes, but no. And let me explain. Modern republicanism, and I'm reading directly from the article in Wikipedia. Modern republicanism is a guiding political philosophy of the United States that has been a major part of American civic thought since its founding. It stresses, and this is where it gets very important to pay attention, it stresses liberty and inalienable individual rights as central values. It recognizes the sovereignty of the people as the source of all authority in law. That's me and you. It's talking about me and you. It rejects monarchy, aristocracy, and hereditary political power. Expects citizens to be virtuous and faithful in their performances of their civic duties. It vilifies corruption. American republicanism was articulated in the first practice by the founding fathers in 18th century. For them, republicanism represented more than a particular form of government. It was a way of life, a core ideology, an uncompromising commitment to liberty, and a total rejection of aristocracy. Republicanism was based on ancient Greco-Roman Renaissance and English models and ideas. So, a little bit of history we got going on. So, it formed the basis of the American Revolution, the Declaration of Independence in 1776, and the Constitution in 1787. the Bill of Rights, as well as the Gettysburg Address. Very foundation of what we're talking about here. The Republicanism includes guarantees of rights that cannot be repealed by a majority vote. Alexis Tocqueville warned about the tyranny of the majority in a democracy and suggested the courts to try to reverse the effort of the majority by terminating the rights of an unpopular minority. That's a warning. If you base everything solely on, I'll give you an example. When Obama was elected, the Democrats, they had the White House, the Congress, and the Senate. They had all three houses. So that is too much power. You don't have a balance, and that's what she was, or he was, warning about. Tyranny of the majority. If you have the majority in both houses and the White House, then you are unstoppable. You can pretty much do whatever it is that you want. I think that we saw during the Obama administration that we saw, executive order even being used over 400 times to push through one-sided leftist policies. So, but we're not talking about that. We're not going to get onto that. So what does this all mean? Where do we go from here? The Constitution clearly tells us that we need to be afforded these things, and I think we can all agree that the left has abandoned all of those principles. Life, liberty, inalienable individual rights, sovereignty, monarchy, aristocracy, corruption. I think all of that is a part of what's going on today with that party. I really, really honestly do, because the American people, and I've said it 100 times, we didn't vote for a man. Donald Trump, I love him. He just happens to be the kind of guy that I like. He pulls no punches. But he's fighting for all of this stuff, and it wouldn't make a difference to me who it was if they were fighting for the same things that Donald Trump is fighting for. Those inalienable rights and liberty in the Constitution, I would be fighting just as hard for that guy. Okay, and I don't care who you put in there, as long as they hold true to those values and those principles. So what does this all mean? Can Texas secede, or any state for that matter? Can any state secede from the United States? Now, the Supreme Court ordered secession unconstitutional in a case of Texas versus White. I was going to give you more detail on that, but I am not a constitutional lawyer. I'm not even a constitutional scholar. But I do understand the things that I'm reading, so I touch on those subjects. If you want to know more, you can look it up yourself. It's also in Wikipedia, Texas versus White. I'm not well versed on case law either, and I did not read it because I wasn't interested in the details. All I needed to know was, can they do it? That's what we're trying to answer. So you can look it up for yourself if you want to know the details. However, based on the guarantee clause, Texas can appeal to Congress and the Senate that the guarantee clause has been violated, and I think that's where they're going with this. The Supreme Court in that Texas versus White said, nope, they can't do it. They cannot secede. It's unconstitutional. That brings us to where we're at. Okay, so now the Supreme Court says, no, can't do it. I don't know what the specifics of the case were, but Texas can bring it back to the Supreme Court and say, look, and that's, I think, probably a portion or at least part of the reason that they're bringing this to the Supreme Court, as well as, there's 18 states now, total, including Texas, that have joined the lawsuit. Probably more to come. We're going to find out. So how does that all fit into this? We're going to touch on that. So Texas, again, they can appeal to Congress in the Senate and say, hey, that, you guys guaranteed us a Republican government, and that is not what's happening. We have a right to individual state protection, and we're not getting it. So you got to read the whole clause to get this. But further, it's pretty obvious to me the current Democratic Party, again, has abandoned Republican principles guaranteed to every state when they enter the agreement to become a part of the United States. If I entered into a contract with you, any of you, and I said, hey, I want to, I guarantee you this, I promise you this is what you're going to get, and I don't follow through on that, what do? You have a right to break the contract. Does that follow when you're talking about legislation and our Constitution and Congress and the Supreme Court and the Senate and the whole 9 yards? Again, I'm not a scholar in this stuff. I'm trying to put two and two together, and it may or may not work for me. I don't know. And if you have an opinion, feel free to go along with me and help me try to figure this out. If you have a comment, feel free to post it. And we'll get to that, and maybe together we can try and figure this whole mess out. But they entered an agreement, and they're not getting what they were told. And neither, I believe, these other 17 states that joined them probably feel the same way. They're not getting the type of government that they signed on to be a part of. Right? It clearly, now I'm getting a little bit tongue-tied here because I want to say some things, but they're purely speculation, and they're purely my own thoughts. So, in opinion. So what I'm going to do is put out my opinion out there, and I think that the Democratic Party is so far off the base and has totally just wipe that whole part of the Constitution out of their book. Well, you can't just do that. Pennsylvania, you can't just change laws as you want to when it's convenient for you. I know that's the Democratic way, but we're not gonna touch on that. So what happens if other states decide to follow Texas? There's another great question. What if? Okay, so we've got the Supreme Court that already said states can't secede. What if the other 17 states follow? What if they decide they want also? Would the federal government allow it? Would the Senate? Would it get past the Senate and Congress? And would it get past the Supreme Court? Probably not. Again, I don't know what the details of the Texas versus White case are, but can you imagine the repercussions? I think there's so much that has to be taken into account. And I gotta tell you, I'll be honest with you, I wouldn't want to be a Supreme Court judge. Absolutely not. With this type of stuff that comes up, holy smokes. I do not envy any of those judges. Not one of them. You really have to be committed to be a Supreme Court judge. it's an incredible and a thankless job. It's incredibly, and you're on the hot seat no matter where you're sitting. You can, I don't care, you're in trouble. All right, so in my opinion, if the federal government found that Texas and other states could not secede, here's the problem. Where do we go from there? What do you think would happen? The Civil War was based on that. The southern states, they said, we're no longer going to be a part of this union. We don't like it. So they started, that's what the Confederate States of America. We're done. We're out. Hence, here comes the Civil War. Is that where we're headed? Just like we had in 1860? Very possible. And what happens if more states jump in? What if more than 18 states jump in? What if we get half of the United States that says, we're done, we're out of here, we don't want to do this? Do we have enough? Do we have enough states to win a civil war? Can a nation divided against itself still stand? Well, biblically, we're told that it can't. So what happens now? Do we have two countries, or within a country fighting against each other at war? And where does the military fit in? Which side are they going to fall on? Again, what's the recourse? What is going to happen? We're going to touch on some of that stuff, and in future videos. I'm going to tell you one of the issues that I have is, God forbid, there's a civil war. I don't want to see that, but I believe, in my own honest opinion, that either way that this goes, there's going to be trouble. I don't know what to tell you. It just seems to be the way that it is. I think we've got people that are so fed up with the way the United States is being handled by our government, and those that are following. I don't want to be biased, but I'm as Republican as they get. You can't vote and trust that your vote's going to matter, and then just sit back and go, well, didn't work out. They cheated, but it's okay, which seems to be what a lot of Democrats are saying. And I don't want to get off on a tangent because I want to stick to my format here. And I have one final question. Let me ask you this, all right? What happens if Texas and other states divide into smaller states? Which is a possibility. Now, there's a debate going on. That's another debate. Constitutionally, there's a clause, seemingly anyway, that allows states to divide. The debate going on between the opponents and proponents of that particular clause in our Constitution is the clarity of the clause. Can these? The debate is whether they can divide it all, or whether they can divide into no more than 4 new states. So if Texas were to divide their state, they could do that with 4 additional states out of it. So giving 5 total out of Texas. And that's the debate. Some say no, you can't do it at all, and some say yeah, you can, but you can't divide more than 4 additional states. Well, if that's true, and let's play the devil's advocate for a second. If it's true that We'll use Texas as an example because that's what we're primarily talking about. Let's say that they decide to divide into four more parts, or 4 equal parts, or even 2. Couldn't they secede that way? Probably a little bit more research needs to be done to answer that question, but if they divide in half or into quarters, can they take one part, leave it Texas as a part of the United States, and take the other half and go, this is a territory, it's not a state? And can they secede that way? Can they leave, a 100-mile stretch on the southeastern border of Texas, make that Texas and divide into 4 more states and all become their own little country? Something to think about. The other option is, again, a flat-out civil war to declare their independence, become a country. Huge questions that I am curious to know. So that's that debate. But let's say, for argument's sake, again, Texas was able to divide. They divide into five separate states. If that were to happen, and the other states followed suit, again, there's another avenue for secession. So let's say, Louisiana and certainly not New Mexico, but Florida, some of the southern states, they all decide, okay, we want to do the same thing, and they all divide into 2 or 3 separate states, and they take the majority of the state that they're in, and they make those territories, and they become their own country along with Texas. What happens? What happens financially? Here's my final thought, and we haven't touched on the impact of the country financially, what that might look like. I want to dig into that because, gosh, can you imagine? Texas is the 2nd most populated state in the country. They bring in the 2nd largest contribution to the GDP nationwide. What happens if they go away? What would that look like? And I'll save that for another video at another time. And I want to do another video, maybe a follow-up to this one, on the pros and cons of secession and the impact that it'll have on the country as a whole. My final thoughts, are this. It's not an easy task to accomplish, but it can be done in a number of ways to get around the Constitution. Not get around the Constitution, but using different aspects of the Constitution to be able to do what it is that they need to do. If you're in a contract with a government, just like anybody else, and the state says, we're not getting our part of it, you're not doing us the right way, then we have an issue. And they may be able to pull that off. We'll see what happens, either by congressional and or judicial ruling. Not ruling out civil war. In any case, this country needs to pray, and we need to keep praying, and we need to stay on that track. Keep our faith in the Lord, and keep asking him, praying for Donald Trump, asking the Lord to keep his hand over our country. We see it in so many other countries. America is divided, and when you have states that are considering seceding and not being a part of it anymore, and you have issues, and we're going to see some of the financial impact sooner than later. If we look at Goldman Sachs leaving New York to go down to Florida. Why? Because of the policies that are being put in place, because of the left-wing policies. The radical governor, Cuomo over there, making up his own rules. And they're starting to lose some of their largest companies. California especially, Holy smokes. California, I had a discussion with a family member this afternoon, and we were talking about California, and Texas being the second largest contributor to the United States in gross daily product revenue, because California has first place because of the big tech companies that are there, Silicon Valley, and we've got huge companies leaving California, and they're going to Texas, and that's not by chance, folks. That's a planned thing. There's a reason they're going to Texas. They chose Texas. HP is leaving. They're going to Texas. Tesla, they're building a plant in Texas. There's a third one, and I can't remember it. They're a huge investment firm. They're leaving. And for those of you that don't know who Oracle is, Oracle announced today that they're leaving, and they're going to Texas as well. And that is huge. Oracle, when you think of these big tech companies, they are among the top 3 largest companies. I'm going to say the top 3 because I don't actually know who the top 2 are. So I'm going to say there may be companies that are bigger than they are, but Oracle owns Linux, and that is the system that runs everything on your computer. Every app on your phone, every app on your computer is run on the Linux system. That's a huge company, and California lost them, and they're going to Texas. And why are they going there? You need to ask yourself that. So I just want to wrap it up. I don't want to get off too much on that because we are going to I'm going to do more videos on that because that's just interesting to me. I want you to consider the sources that I used. Wikipedia, I'm going to put the link right down there. Go ahead and click on it if you want more information. You want to find out details on some of the things that I've put up there. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you folks watching. Like it. Follow me. I'm going to keep doing this stuff because these are interesting things that come up. More and more and more. Y'all have a great day, and we will